The marble floors of the Thornton mansion echoed with footsteps that 12-year-old Ethan couldn't hear. He sat in his bedroom, a space larger than most people's apartments, surrounded by every toy and gadget money could buy, yet isolated in a silence that no amount of wealth could break. Before we dive into this incredible story of transformation and unexpected miracles, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and hit that like button. It really helps us bring you more amazing stories like this one. And don't forget to comment below and tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our viewers around the world. Now let's begin. Ethan Thornton pressed his hands against the window, watching the gardeners work below. He could see their mouths moving, laughing at some joke he'd never hear. Born profoundly deaf, Ethan had lived his entire life in a world of silence. No bird singing. No music playing. No voice calling his name with love. His father, William Thornton, was the founder and CEO of Thornton Industries, a tech conglomerate worth over $8 billion. William had built an empire on innovation and disruption, but he couldn't fix his son's deafness. He tried everything, consulted with the world's leading audiologists, explored experimental treatments, even funded research into cochlear implant improvements. Nothing worked. Ethan's auditory nerves were too damaged. The doctors said he would never hear. So William did what he knew how to do. He threw money at the problem. Ethan had the best sign language tutors, the most advanced hearing aids that provided minimal benefit, speech therapists who worked tirelessly to help him vocalize clearly. The boy attended an elite private school with special accommodations, though he struggled to connect with hearing classmates who didn't understand his world. But money couldn't buy what Ethan needed most: genuine connection. Someone who saw him as more than a disability. Someone who communicated with him not out of obligation, but out of love. William tried in his way. He'd learned basic sign language, though his hands were often too busy with phone calls and business deals to sign much. He hired the best staff to care for Ethan: private nurses, specialized educators, therapists of every kind. What he couldn't do was be present. His guilt over Ethan's deafness, irrational but overwhelming, drove him to work even harder, as if the next $1 billion might somehow compensate for what his son lacked. Ethan's mother had left when he was 3, unable to cope with having a deaf child. She'd wanted a perfect family to match William's perfect success, and Ethan's disability shattered that vision. She divorced William, signed away custody, and disappeared into a new life in Europe. Ethan barely remembered her, which was perhaps a mercy. So the boy grew up in a mansion full of staff but empty of family. He was polite, well-educated, and profoundly lonely. That changed the day Maria Santos arrived. Maria was 48 years old, an immigrant from the Philippines who'd come to America 20 years earlier seeking better opportunities. She'd worked various housekeeping jobs, sending money home to support her elderly parents and younger siblings. When the position at the Thornton mansion opened, she applied hoping for stable employment with good pay. She got the job, but she got so much more than that. Maria's first day at the mansion was overwhelming. The estate manager, Mrs. Crawford, a stern woman in her 60s, gave her a brisk tour. The East Wing is Mr. Thornton's private quarters. You'll clean there Tuesdays and Fridays when he's at the office. The West Wing is for guests. We rarely have any, but keep it maintained. The boys' rooms are on the second floor, north side. The boy? Maria asked. Mrs. Crawford's expression softened slightly. Ethan. Mr. Thornton's son. He's 12, deaf from birth. Has tutors and therapists coming and going all day. Your job is to clean his spaces, do his laundry, keep things organized. Don't try to interact with him, he has professionals for that. Just do your work and stay invisible. But Maria had never been good at staying invisible. The first time she saw Ethan, he was sitting in the library, surrounded by books he was reading with fierce concentration. He didn't notice her enter. Of course he didn't, she realized. He couldn't hear her footsteps. She began dusting the shelves quietly, not wanting to disturb him. When Ethan finally looked up and saw her, he startled. Maria smiled and waved. The boy stared at her for a moment, then returned to his book, dismissing her. Over the next few weeks, Maria observed Ethan carefully. She watched how the tutors communicated with him through sign language, how they spoke slowly when using speech reading, how isolated he seemed even when surrounded by people supposedly helping him. She noticed something else too. Ethan was incredibly intelligent. He devoured books on advanced mathematics, science, history. His written English was sophisticated beyond his years. This wasn't a child limited by his deafness. This was a brilliant mind trapped in isolation. One afternoon, Maria was cleaning Ethan's bedroom when she found a notebook tucked under his pillow. She knew she shouldn't look, but curiosity overcame her. Inside were pages of writing. A journal, she realized. And what she read broke her heart. Today was my birthday. I turned 12. Dad gave me a new laptop and said happy birthday. Then he left for a meeting in Singapore. The tutors sang to me but I couldn't hear it. They said I should feel the vibrations and be happy. But how can you feel happy about something you can't experience? Sometimes I wonder what my voice sounds like to other people. I try to speak but I can't hear if I'm doing it right. I see people's faces when I talk. Some look uncomfortable, others pitying. I hate it. I wish I could just disappear into silence forever since that's where I live anyway. Maria carefully placed the notebook back, her eyes wet with tears. This child wasn't just deaf. He was drowning in loneliness. That night, Maria did something she hadn't done in years. She went to the public library and checked out books on American Sign Language. She stayed up late, studying, practicing hand shapes and movements. Her fingers were clumsy at first, used to holding brooms and dusters, not forming complex signs. But she persisted. She also researched everything she could about deaf culture, deaf education, the experiences of deaf children. She learned that deafness wasn't a disability to be fixed but a different way of experiencing the world. She learned about the rich culture and community among deaf people, something Ethan was completely isolated from in his mansion. 2 weeks later, Maria approached Ethan while he was eating breakfast alone in the dining room. She stood where he could see her, then slowly, carefully signed, "Good morning, Ethan. My name is Maria." Ethan's fork clattered to his plate. He stared at her in shock. None of the household staff had ever tried to sign with him. They left communication to the professionals. Maria continued signing, though her movements were still awkward. "I am learning. I'm not good yet, but I want to talk with you." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. He signed back, his hands fluid and natural. "You're learning sign language?" "For me." Maria nodded, then signed, "Yes. For you." It was the beginning of everything. From that day forward, Maria spent every spare moment with Ethan. She'd arrive early before her shift officially started, staying late after her work was done. She practiced signing with him, learning from him as much as from her books. Ethan was patient with her mistakes, delighted to have someone genuinely interested in his language. But Maria gave Ethan more than just someone to sign with. She gave him joy. She started bringing ingredients to make traditional Filipino food, teaching Ethan to cook with her in the mansion's massive, underutilized kitchen. She couldn't explain the recipes verbally, so she showed him, hands working together, kneading dough, stirring pots, tasting and adjusting. Cooking became their shared language. "This is called lumpia," she signed, showing him how to wrap the spring rolls. "My mother taught me when I was your age." "Tell me about her," Ethan signed back. "Tell me about your family." So Maria did. She told him about growing up in a small village in the Philippines, about her 5 siblings, about her father who was a fisherman and her mother who sold vegetables at the market. She told him about leaving home at 28 to find work abroad, about the loneliness and homesickness, about sending money home and feeling guilty for not being there. Ethan absorbed every story, hungry for connection to a world beyond his isolated mansion. "Do you miss them?" he asked. "Every day," Maria signed. "But I video call them when I can. Would you like to meet them?" Ethan's face lit up. "Really?" That weekend, Maria set up a video call with her family in the Philippines. The connection was poor and the screen kept freezing, but Ethan was mesmerized. Maria's mother, a tiny woman with a warm smile, waved enthusiastically. Her siblings crowded around the camera, all talking at once. Maria interpreted through sign language, and Ethan signed responses that Maria voiced. "Your family is so big," Ethan signed. "So loud. So happy. Family isn't always blood, Maria signed back. Family is who loves you, who shows up for you. It was a message Ethan desperately needed to hear. Meanwhile, William Thornton remained largely oblivious to the transformation happening in his own home. He was in the middle of a major acquisition, spending 18-hour days at the office or traveling for negotiations. When he was home, he'd check in briefly with Ethan, ask if he needed anything, then retreat to his study for conference calls. Mrs. Crawford noticed the change in Ethan. The boy smiled more. He seemed lighter, less withdrawn. She mentioned it to William during one of their weekly household management meetings. "The boy seems happier lately," she said. "I think it's the new housekeeper, Maria. She's been spending time with him." William frowned. "I don't pay her to spend time with him. I pay her to clean." "She does her work excellently," Mrs. Crawford assured him. "But in her free time she's been, befriending him. Teaching him to cook, talking with him. She learned sign language." William's frown deepened. "That's what I pay tutors for." "The tutors teach him academics," Mrs. Crawford said carefully. "Maria is giving him something different. Friendship. Joy. Joy." William repeated the word as if it were foreign. "He has everything he needs. Specialists, equipment, education." "He has those things," Mrs. Crawford interrupted, something she rarely dared to do. "But Mr. Thornton, when was the last time you saw your son laugh? Really laugh?" William didn't have an answer. That evening, he came home earlier than usual and went looking for Ethan. He found him in the kitchen with Maria, both of them covered in flour, making some kind of pastry. They were laughing, silently for Ethan, but his whole body shook with mirth. Maria's hands were moving rapidly, signing something that made Ethan laugh even harder. William stood in the doorway, watching. His son looked happy. When was the last time he'd seen Ethan happy? Maria noticed William first. She straightened up, suddenly self-conscious. "Mr. Thornton, I'm sorry, we're making a mess. I'll clean everything." William held up a hand. "What are you making?" "Ensaimada," Maria said. "It's a Filipino pastry. Ethan wanted to learn." William looked at his son. "You like cooking now?" Ethan signed his response, his hands moving with animated enthusiasm. William's rudimentary sign language skills weren't enough to follow the rapid movements. He looked to Maria helplessly. "He says cooking is like chemistry but more fun," Maria interpreted. "He says he wants to learn to make food from different countries. He says..." She paused, uncertain if she should continue. "What?" William pressed. "He says it's the first time he's felt excited about learning something outside of books." William felt something twist in his chest. Guilt? Shame? He'd given his son the best education money could buy, but had never thought to simply let him experience joy in learning. "Can I try some?" William asked, pointing to the pastries cooling on the rack. Ethan's eyes widened in surprise. His father never ate sweets, was always on some strict diet for optimal performance. But he was asking now. Maria handed William a pastry. He bit into it, rich, buttery, topped with cheese. It was delicious. "This is good," he said. "Really good." Ethan beamed with pride. That night, William sat in his study, unable to focus on work. He kept thinking about Ethan's face in the kitchen, the happiness radiating from him. And he thought about the source of that happiness, not expensive therapies or equipment, but a housekeeper who'd cared enough to learn sign language. Over the next few weeks, William started coming home earlier. He'd find Ethan and Maria together, sometimes cooking, sometimes working on a puzzle, sometimes just sitting and signing, having conversations. He'd watch from a distance, not quite ready to insert himself into their dynamic but compelled to observe. He noticed things he'd missed. How Maria never talked down to Ethan, never treated his deafness as a limitation. How she challenged him, teased him, made him work for things instead of handing everything to him the way staff usually did. How she'd created inside jokes with him, references only they understood. How she'd become, in a few short months, more of a parent to Ethan than William had been in 12 years. One Saturday afternoon, William found Maria in the laundry room, folding Ethan's clothes. He knocked on the doorframe to get her attention. Mr. Thornton, Maria said, straightening up. Is something wrong? No, William said. I wanted to thank you for what you've done for Ethan. Maria looked uncomfortable. I haven't done anything special, sir. Just spent time with him. That's more than most people do, William said. More than I do. He paused, struggling with words. I've been a terrible father. Mr. Thornton. It's true, he interrupted. I've given him things instead of time. Money instead of presents. I convinced myself that hiring the best people was enough. That providing for him financially was being a good father. Maria set down the laundry she was folding. You love him. I can see that. You're just afraid. Afraid. William hadn't expected that. Afraid of failing him, Maria said gently. Afraid that you can't give him what he needs because you can't fix his deafness. So you give him everything else instead. William felt his throat tighten. I failed him. I couldn't protect him from this. I couldn't make him whole. He is whole, Maria said firmly. Ethan doesn't need to be fixed, Mr. Thornton. He needs to be loved. Valued for who he is, not pitted for what he can't do. I don't pity him, William protested. Don't you? Maria challenged gently. Every time you avoid spending time with him because you don't know how to communicate because it's too hard, because you feel guilty, that's pity. And he feels it. William sank into a chair, the truth of her words hitting hard. I don't know what to do. How to reach him. Start simple, Maria said. Learn to sign. Really learn, not just basic words. Spend time with him doing things he loves. Stop seeing his deafness as a wall between you and start seeing it as just another part of who he is. Will you help me? William asked. Will you teach me? Maria smiled. Yes. But you have to commit. Ethan has had too many people give up on really connecting with him. Don't be another one. I won't, William promised. That night, William knocked on Ethan's bedroom door and waited for the boy to open it. Ethan looked surprised to see his father at this hour. Usually William was on conference calls with Asia by now. William's hands moved awkwardly as he signed, "Can we talk?" Ethan's surprise deepened, but he nodded and let William into his room. They sat on the bed, and William pulled out a notebook and pen. He wrote, "I'm sorry I haven't been a good father. I'm going to change that. I'm going to learn to sign properly. I want to know you. Really know you. Will you help me?" Ethan read the words, tears forming in his eyes. He signed back slowly so his father could follow. "Do you mean it? You're really going to learn?" William nodded emphatically. "Yes. I promise." Ethan threw his arms around William, hugging him tightly. William held his son, feeling the boy's tears against his shoulder, and realized this was the first real hug they'd shared in years. The next morning, William cleared his calendar for the afternoon and asked Maria to give him a proper sign language lesson. She brought Ethan along, and the three of them sat in the library as Maria taught basic signs. William was terrible at first. His hands were stiff, his movements awkward. He'd built a tech empire but couldn't seem to master the simple alphabet. Ethan giggled at his father's mistakes, which made William laugh too, a real, unguarded laugh that surprised them all. Again, William signed clumsily. "Teach me again." Maria and Ethan patiently corrected his hand shapes. They drilled vocabulary. They practiced simple sentences. William's fingers cramped and his brain hurt from the concentration, but he pushed through. By the end of the session, he could sign, "My name is William. I love my son." It wasn't much, but when he signed it to Ethan, the boy's face lit up with pure joy. Over the following months, William committed to learning. He hired a private sign language tutor for intensive lessons. He watched videos during his commute. He practiced constantly, sometimes in the middle of business meetings, moving his fingers under the table to drill vocabulary. His executives thought he was losing focus. His board worried about his sudden reduced hours. But William didn't care. For the first time in years, his priorities had shifted. The company would survive without him working 80-hour weeks. His son wouldn't. He started having dinner with Ethan every night he was in town. At first, their conversations were simple. "How was school? What did you learn today? What do you want to do this weekend?" But as William's signing improved, the conversations deepened. "Do you ever wish you could hear?" William asked one evening. Ethan considered this. "Sometimes. I wonder what music sounds like. What birds sound like. Your voice." He paused. "But then I think if I could hear, I'd be a different person. Maybe you wouldn't have hired Maria. Maybe Maria wouldn't have learned to sign. Maybe we wouldn't be here, having this conversation." "You think your deafness led to something good?" William asked. "I think everything leads to something," Ethan signed. "Being deaf is hard. People treat me different. I miss things. But it's also made me who I am. And I like who I am now." William felt tears in his eyes. His 12-year-old son had more wisdom than he'd accumulated in 45 years. Maria watched these changes from the sidelines, pleased but also concerned. She'd grown deeply attached to Ethan, loved him like he was her own child. But she knew her role in his life was temporary. She was staff, no matter how much the lines had blurred. Eventually, William wouldn't need her help anymore. Eventually, she'd just be the housekeeper again. But fate had other plans. One evening, Ethan came to Maria with his tablet, excited about something he'd found. He'd been researching deaf communities and discovered there was a school in the city, Anderson Academy for the Deaf, that provided education entirely in sign language, taught by deaf teachers, with a thriving deaf student community. "Can I go there?" Ethan signed. "Can I be with other kids like me?" Maria felt torn. She wanted Ethan to have that community, that belonging. But it wasn't her decision to make. "You need to ask your father." "Will you come with me?" Ethan signed. "When I ask him?" That night, with Maria present for support, Ethan approached William in his study. Father and son had been working on their signing, but this conversation was too important for Ethan to trust his father's still developing skills. Maria agreed to interpret. "Dad," Ethan signed, with Maria voicing, "I found a school I want to attend. Anderson Academy for the Deaf." William looked up from his laptop, immediately concerned. "What's wrong with your current school?" "They have accommodations, specialists. They have hearing people trying to help a deaf kid," Ethan signed. "Anderson has deaf people teaching deaf kids. In sign language. Everyone there is like me." William frowned. "But the academic standards, your current school is one of the best in the state." "For hearing kids," Ethan signed emphatically. "Dad, I've never had a deaf friend. I've never had a teacher who understood what it's like to be me. I've never been in a place where I wasn't the different one." William sat back, processing this. His instinct was to refuse. Ethan's current school was prestigious, had connections to top universities, provided everything money could buy. But money wasn't what Ethan needed. Can we visit the school?" William asked. "See if it's a good fit?" Ethan's face broke into a huge smile. "Really? Really?" William confirmed. "We'll go next week." The visit to Anderson Academy changed everything. The school was modest compared to Ethan's elite private school, no marble hallways or state-of-the-art facilities. But it had something far more valuable: belonging. From the moment they walked through the doors, Ethan was immersed in sign language. Students signed to each other in hallways. Teachers signed in classrooms. Announcements were in sign language. For the first time in his life, Ethan wasn't navigating a hearing world with accommodations. He was in a deaf world where he fit perfectly. A group of students approached Ethan, signing rapidly. William couldn't follow the conversation, but he saw his son's face light up as he signed back. They were talking about video games, apparently universal language among 12-year-olds, whether deaf or hearing. The principal, a deaf woman named Dr. Patricia Chin, met with William. She signed while an interpreter voiced for him. "Mr. Thornton, I understand Ethan attends Westbrook Prep currently. That's an excellent school." "But," William prompted, sensing hesitation. "But it's designed for hearing students with deaf students accommodated within it. At Anderson, deaf students are the norm. Sign language is the primary language. Deaf culture is celebrated, not treated as something to work around." "What about academics?" William asked. "Will he be prepared for college? Our students consistently score above national averages on standardized tests," Dr. Chin signed. Last year, 95% of our graduates were accepted to four-year universities. Being taught in our primary language, by teachers who share our experiences, allows us to excel. We're not fighting language barriers in addition to learning content. William toured classrooms, watching deaf teachers teach in flowing sign language, deaf students engaged and participating freely. He saw Ethan talking, signing, with potential classmates, laughing at jokes William couldn't follow. On the drive home, William said, and signed, to Ethan, "You want to go there, don't you?" Ethan nodded vigorously. I felt like I belonged. For the first time, I felt normal. "You are normal," William insisted. "I know," Ethan signed. "But everyone else knows it too." William enrolled Ethan at Anderson Academy the following month. The transition was remarkable. Ethan thrived in ways William had never imagined possible. He came home excited about school, talking about friends, actual friends, not just classmates who tolerated him. He joined the basketball team, participated in drama club, even ran for student council. "He's a different kid," William told Maria one evening. They were sitting in the kitchen while Ethan was at a school social event, something he never would have attended at his old school. "He's the same kid," Maria corrected. "Just finally in an environment where he can be fully himself." "I almost kept him at Westbrook," William admitted. "I almost let my pride about prestigious schools prevent him from finding where he belongs." "But you didn't," Maria pointed out. "You listened to him. You changed your mind. That's growth, Mr. Thornton." William smiled. "You can call me William, you know. After everything you've done for us, I think we're past formal titles." Maria felt her face warm. "That wouldn't be appropriate, sir." "Maria," William said seriously, "you've been more family to Ethan than most of his actual relatives. You changed both our lives. A little informality seems reasonable." Before Maria could respond, Ethan burst through the front door, signing excitedly. William caught about half of it, something about a talent show and performing something. Maria interpreted the parts William missed. "He wants to perform a Filipino folk dance at the school talent show. He wants me to teach him." "You dance?" William asked her, surprised. "I used to," Maria said. "Back home before I came here. It's been years, though." "Will you teach him?" William asked. "Will you help him with the performance?" Maria looked at Ethan's eager face and couldn't say no. "Of course." Over the next few weeks, Maria taught Ethan the tinikling, a traditional Filipino dance involving bamboo poles. They practiced in the ballroom that had sat unused for years, Maria showing Ethan the intricate footwork, the rhythm, the joy of movement. William would watch sometimes, seeing a side of Maria he'd never known existed. She was graceful, alive in a way he hadn't seen before. And Ethan was learning not just a dance but a connection to Maria's heritage, to her story. The night of the talent show, William and Maria sat in the audience at Anderson Academy. The auditorium was full of signing families, deaf children performing songs in sign language, comedy skits, poetry. Then Ethan took the stage. Maria had helped him set up bamboo poles, and two of his new friends helped operate them, clapping the poles together in rhythm. Ethan danced the tinikling, his feet moving in and out of the clapping poles with precision and joy. He was good. Really good. The audience erupted in applause, visual applause, hands raised and waving, the deaf equivalent of cheering. William turned to Maria and saw tears streaming down her face. "Why are you crying?" "Because he's happy," Maria said simply. "Because he's found himself. Because love won." William reached out and took her hand. "Thank you. For loving him when I didn't know how. For showing me what he needed. For being who you are." Maria looked down at their joined hands, then back at William. Something had shifted between them over these months. Something neither had acknowledged but both felt. Before either could say more, Ethan bounded over, his friends in tow, signing rapidly about how much fun he'd had. The moment passed, but the feeling remained. That night, after dropping Ethan off at home, William asked Maria to stay for a moment. They stood in the kitchen where this had all begun, where Maria had first taught Ethan to cook. "Maria, I need to tell you something," William began. These past months, watching you with Ethan, working with you, learning from you, he paused, struggling with words. You've changed everything. Not just for Ethan. For me too. Maria's heart pounded. Mr. Thornton, William, I'm just the housekeeper. No, William said firmly. You're not. You're the woman who saved my son. The woman who taught me how to be a father. The woman who... He took a breath. The woman I've fallen in love with. Maria stepped back, shaking her head. We can't, I work for you. The class difference, the power dynamic, it wouldn't be right. Then quit, William said. Or I'll quit. I'll sell the company. Maria, I don't care about any of that. I care about you. I care about how you make me want to be better. How you see people for who they really are. How you've shown me what love actually looks like. I'm 48 years old, Maria said. You're 45. You're a billionaire. I'm an immigrant housekeeper. People will say... Let them say, William interrupted. Maria, I've spent my whole life caring what people think, pursuing the right image, the right success. I'm done with that. I want real. I want true. I want you. Maria felt tears in her eyes. What about Ethan? As if on cue, Ethan appeared in the doorway. He'd been watching, understanding from their body language, if not their words, that something important was happening. He signed to his father. Dad, what's going on? William signed back. I'm telling Maria that I love her. That I want her to be part of our family. Really part of it. Ethan's face split into a massive grin. He rushed over and hugged Maria. Say yes, he signed against her shoulder. Please say yes. You're already family. Just make it official. Maria looked at these two people, man and boy, who'd become her whole world. She thought about every reason this was complicated, inappropriate, unlikely to work. And then she thought about love, and how it didn't care about any of those things. Yes, she finally said. Yes, I'll stay. Yes, I love you both. Yes to all of it. William kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. Ethan cheered silently, his hands waving in celebration. The billionaire's son had lived in silence. But the maid had revealed something that changed everything. Not through words, but through love. Through seeing a lonely boy and choosing to reach him. Through teaching him joy and teaching his father presence. She'd revealed that family isn't about blood or money or status. It's about showing up. About loving even when it's hard. About breaking down walls, not walls of silence, but walls of isolation, fear, and pride. Ethan's silence hadn't ended. He was still deaf, still living in a world without sound. But he was no longer alone in that silence. He had Maria, who'd learned his language. He had his father, who was learning too. He had friends at Anderson who shared his experience. He had belonging. And sometimes that's the greatest gift of all. Not fixing what's different, but loving it exactly as it is. 6 months had passed since that night in the kitchen when everything changed. The Thornton mansion felt different now, warmer, lived in, filled with a kind of love that no amount of money could have purchased. Maria had officially moved from the staff quarters into the main house, though they'd been careful about how they presented the relationship to the outside world. Not out of shame, but out of respect for the complexity of their situation and, most importantly, for Ethan. It was a Saturday morning, and Ethan sat at the breakfast table working on homework while Maria prepared pancakes, proper ones this time, not the burnt disasters William used to make. William walked in, already dressed for the day, and signed his greeting, "Good morning, family." The word family still made Maria's heart swell every time he used it. Ethan grinned and signed back, "Morning, Dad." "Morning, Maria." He'd started calling her by her first name instead of Mrs. Santos, a subtle shift that acknowledged their evolving relationship. William poured coffee and sat down next to his son, reviewing the homework over Ethan's shoulder. It was an advanced mathematics problem that William himself found challenging. "You're getting too smart for me," he signed with exaggerated dismay. "I had a good teacher," Ethan signed back, pointing at Maria. Maria laughed. "I taught you cooking, not calculus. That's all you, sweetheart." Their peaceful morning was interrupted by the doorbell. "Mrs. Crawford?" who'd stayed on staff and had become fiercely protective of the family's happiness, answered it. A moment later, she appeared in the kitchen doorway, her expression troubled. "Mr. Thornton, there's someone here to see you." "A woman. She says she's Ethan's mother." The room went silent. Even Ethan, who couldn't hear the statement, felt the sudden tension. He looked between the adults, confused, then asked in sign, "What's wrong?" William's face had gone pale. "Diane is here?" "Who's Diane?" Ethan signed, though something in his expression suggested he already knew. Maria touched Ethan's shoulder gently. "Your birth mother," she signed. "The woman who left when you were small." Ethan's eyes widened. William stood up, his jaw tight. "Tell her I'll meet her in my study. Ethan and Maria, stay here." "No," Ethan signed firmly. "If she's here about me, I should be there." William started to argue, then stopped. Ethan was 12 now, nearly 13. Old enough to face difficult truths. "All right. But Maria comes too." They walked to William's study together, a united front. Diane Thornton, though she no longer used that name, William would learn, stood by the window. She was tall, elegant, dressed in expensive clothes that screamed European sophistication. She turned when they entered, and her eyes immediately found Ethan. "My God," she said in a cultured accent that hadn't been there before. "He's so big. So grown up." Ethan stared at this stranger who was supposed to be his mother. He remembered nothing about her, just old photographs William had shown him, explaining as gently as possible that his mother had left because she couldn't handle his deafness. "Diane," William said coldly. "Why are you here? After 9 years of silence, why now?" Diane's gaze shifted to Maria, standing protectively close to Ethan. "And who is this? The help?" "This is Maria," William said, his voice hard as steel. "She's my partner and Ethan's, well, she's family. More family than you've ever been." Diane's perfectly made-up face twitched with something, annoyance? Jealousy? "William, can we speak privately? This is family business." "No," William signed and spoke simultaneously. "Anything you have to say, you can say in front of everyone. Ethan deserves to hear it. He deserves to know why you abandoned him." Diane flinched. "I didn't abandon him. I was overwhelmed. I was young, unprepared for a child with special needs." "He's deaf, not broken," Maria interrupted quietly but firmly. "And you were 32 when he was born. Not that young." Diane's eyes narrowed at Maria. "You have no right to speak to me about my son." "She has every right," Ethan signed, his hands moving sharply with anger. William interpreted for Diane. "She's been more of a mother to me than you ever were." "You sign now," Diane said, looking at Ethan with something like wonder. "You're so fluent." "I've always signed," Ethan responded through William's interpretation. "You just never bothered to learn." The words hung in the air like an accusation. Diane's composure cracked slightly. "Ethan, I'm here because I've changed. I've grown. I made mistakes, terrible mistakes, but I want to make amends. I want to be part of your life again." "Why now?" William demanded. "What changed?" Diane hesitated, then said, "I'm remarrying. My fiancé, he's a good man, a kind man. When I told him about you, Ethan, he said I should reach out. That I'd regret it forever if I didn't try to reconnect." "So you're here because your new man told you to be?" Maria said, unable to keep the contempt from her voice. "Not because you actually want to know your son?" "That's not fair," Diane protested. "I've thought about Ethan every day. I've followed his life from a distance. I know about the medical crisis last year. I heard you were sick, sweetheart, and I was so worried." "Sick?" Ethan signed, confused. William realized Diane didn't know the details, had just heard rumors. "I wasn't sick. My kidneys failed. I almost died." William interpreted, and Diane's face went white. "What? How did I not know this?" "Because you weren't here," William said bluntly. "Because you gave up all rights to information about him when you divorced me and signed away custody. Ethan was dying and we couldn't find a donor. Maria saved him. She gave him one of her kidneys." Diane looked at Maria with shock, Then something else. Resentment, perhaps? You gave him a kidney? I gave him life, Maria said simply. Because I love him. Because he's my son in all the ways that matter. He's my son, Diane said, her voice rising. Biologically, legally. No, William interrupted. Not legally. You have no legal rights to Ethan. You signed them away. And biologically? That's just DNA. Maria is his mother. She earned that title. Ethan had been watching this exchange, reading lips where he could and picking up on body language. He signed to his father, I want to talk to her. Alone. William hesitated. Ethan, you don't have to. I want to. Ethan signed. Please. William looked at Maria, who nodded reluctantly. They left Ethan alone with Diane, waiting anxiously in the hallway. Inside the study, Ethan and Diane faced each other. She didn't know sign language, so Ethan typed on his phone, showing her the text. Why did you really come back? He wrote. Diane read the question and sank into a chair. Because I'm getting married and starting to think about having more children, and I realized I already have a child. One I abandoned. And I thought maybe I could fix it. You can't fix it, Ethan typed. You can't come back after 9 years and pretend to be my mother. I don't know you. I don't remember you. You're a stranger. Tears formed in Diane's eyes. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But Ethan, I was so scared. When you were diagnosed as deaf, I felt like I'd failed. Like I'd done something wrong during pregnancy. Your father threw himself into trying to fix you, and I couldn't cope. So I ran. Dad didn't try to fix me, Ethan wrote. He tried to help me. There's a difference. And he learned. He changed. He learned my language and actually became my father. You just left. I was weak, Diane admitted. I was selfish. I chose my own comfort over my child. There's no excuse for that. Ethan stared at her for a long moment, then typed. Do you even know anything about deaf culture? About what my life is like? Diane shook her head. No. I'm ashamed to say I don't. I go to Anderson Academy now, Ethan wrote. It's a deaf school. Everyone signs. I have friends who are like me. I'm on the basketball team. I'm in drama club. I'm happy. None of that would have happened if you'd stayed, because you would have kept treating my deafness like a disease instead of just part of who I am. Diane absorbed this, tears now flowing freely. You're right. You're absolutely right. Maybe my leaving was the best thing I could have done for you. Because it let you find people who could truly love you as you are. Ethan typed one more message. I don't hate you. But I don't need you either. I have a family. Dad and Maria. They're my family. If you want to be in my life, it can't be as a mother trying to make up for lost time. It would have to be as, I don't know, a distant relative I occasionally see. I can accept that, Diane said, her voice breaking. Whatever you're willing to give, I'll take. I don't deserve even that much. Ethan stood and walked to the door, then turned back and typed one final message. Maria gave me her kidney. She literally gave me part of herself so I could live. That's what love is. Not biology. Not DNA. But sacrifice. Remember that when you have your new children. He opened the door and left. William and Maria immediately surrounded him, Maria signing, Are you okay? What happened? I'm fine, Ethan signed. She wants to be in my life. I said maybe, but not as a mother. You're my mother, Maria. You earned it. Maria pulled Ethan into a fierce hug, tears streaming down her face. William joined them, wrapping his arms around both. They stood there, a family forged not by blood but by choice and sacrifice and love. Diane emerged from the study a moment later. She saw them embracing and something in her face crumpled. I'll go, she said quietly. William, I'll have my lawyer send over documents. I want to formally terminate any residual parental rights. I want it clear that Ethan is yours and Maria's, not mine. William nodded. That's probably best. Diane looked at Maria. Thank you. For loving him. For saving him. For being what I couldn't be. Maria didn't respond, just held Ethan tighter. After Diane left, the house felt lighter somehow, as if a shadow had been lifted. They spent the rest of the day doing ordinary things. Maria taught Ethan a new recipe, William worked in his study, they ate dinner together and watched a movie with subtitles. That night, after Ethan had gone to bed, William and Maria sat in the library. That was hard, William said. Seeing her again. Watching Ethan face her. He handled it better than I would have, Maria admitted. He's strong. Mature beyond his years. He gets that from you, William said. Your strength. Your grace. Maria smiled. He gets it from facing hard things and surviving them. From almost dying and choosing to live fully. William took her hand. Maria, I've been thinking. About us. About our family. Oh. Maria's heart started beating faster. I want to make it official, William said. Not just living together, not just partners. I want to marry you. I want to adopt you into this family legally, officially, in every way possible. Maria stared at him. William, are you proposing? Yes, he said simply. I know it's complicated. I know people will talk. I know some will say it's inappropriate, that there's a power imbalance, that we come from different worlds. But I don't care. I love you. Ethan loves you. You're already family. I just want to make it official. Before Maria could respond, they heard a noise. Ethan stood in the doorway in his pajamas, grinning. Did he ask you? He signed. Finally. You knew about this? Maria signed back. He asked my permission 2 weeks ago. Ethan signed. I said yes immediately. You're already my mom. This just makes it legal. Maria looked between William and Ethan, these two people who'd become her entire world. She thought about her life before this family, the loneliness, the feeling that she was invisible, just someone who cleaned houses. And she thought about what they'd given her, purpose, love, belonging. Yes, she said, signing and speaking simultaneously. Yes, I'll marry you. William pulled a ring from his pocket, simple but beautiful, a single diamond surrounded by smaller stones. I had it designed, he explained. The small stones represent the two of us and Ethan. The center diamond represents our family, something precious created under pressure. He slipped it onto her finger, and Ethan rushed over to join their embrace. They stood there, 3 people who'd found each other against all odds, and cried happy tears together. The wedding was planned for 3 months later. Enough time to prepare, but not so long that the anticipation became torture. William wanted something big and grand, but Maria insisted on something small and intimate. They compromised. A medium-sized ceremony at the mansion with close friends, colleagues, and the Anderson Academy community. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind. Maria's family flew in from the Philippines. Her mother, her siblings, nieces and nephews Ethan had only met via video chat. The mansion suddenly felt alive with people, with multiple languages being spoken and signed, with the kind of joyful chaos Maria had grown up with but hadn't experienced in years. Ethan was fascinated by Maria's family. Her nephew, Miguel, was close to Ethan's age and deaf as well, something Maria had never mentioned. The 2 boys became instant friends, signing rapidly about video games and basketball and all the things 13-year-old boys care about. You never told me Miguel was deaf, Ethan signed to Maria one evening. I didn't think it mattered, Maria signed back. In my family, Miguel is just Miguel. The deaf one, yes, but also the funny one, the smart one, the one who's brilliant at chess. His deafness is just one part of him. That's how you've always treated me, Ethan signed. Not as the deaf kid who needs fixing, but just as Ethan. Because that's who you are, Maria signed. Just Ethan. Perfect as you are. William watched these interactions with wonder. He'd built a tech empire, revolutionized industries, made billions, but he'd never created anything as meaningful as this family. As this love. The night before the wedding, William's best man, his longtime business partner, James, pulled him aside. Are you sure about this, Will? Marriage is one thing, but you're also planning to legally adopt Maria as Ethan's mother. That's a big step. It's the easiest decision I've ever made, William said. James, Maria saved my son's life. She gave him her kidney. She taught me how to be a father. She showed us both what love actually means. Why wouldn't I want to bind myself to her in every way possible? I just worry people will question your judgment, James said carefully. There's already been some media speculation about your relationship. About the power dynamics, the class differences. Let them speculate, William interrupted. I spent 45 years caring what people thought, building the right image, pursuing success as the world defined it. It's left me empty, James. My son was dying, and I couldn't save him with all my money. Maria saved him with love. That's what matters. That's all that matters. James smiled and clapped William on the shoulder. You're right. And for what it's worth, I've never seen you this happy. She's good for you. Good for both of you. The wedding day dawned clear and beautiful. Maria's sisters helped her get ready, chattering in Tagalog and broken English, teasing her affectionately about marrying a billionaire. You're like Cinderella, her younger sister Rosa said. No, Maria corrected. Cinderella needed magic to transform her life. I just needed to love a boy who needed loving. Everything else followed from that. The ceremony was held in the mansion's garden, which had been transformed with flowers and lights. Chairs were arranged in rows, filled with people from all parts of William and Maria's lives. Tech executives in suits sitting next to Maria's relatives in traditional Filipino dress, deaf students from Anderson Academy signing to each other, household staff who'd become friends. Ethan served as both ring-bearer and man of honor, dressed in a sharp suit and grinning from ear to ear. As Maria walked down the aisle, escorted by her elderly father who'd traveled halfway around the world to see his daughter marry, Ethan signed to the assembled guests, "That's my mom." The ceremony itself was unique. The officiant spoke and signed simultaneously, ensuring everyone could participate. William and Maria had written their own vows, which they both spoke and signed. William went first. Maria, when you came into our lives, I didn't recognize the gift you were. I saw a housekeeper, an employee, someone to manage. I was blind to the extraordinary person standing in front of me. You taught me to see. You taught me that love isn't about grand gestures or expensive gifts, though I'll still give you those. He paused as the audience laughed. Love is about showing up. About learning someone's language, literally and figuratively. About sacrifice. You gave Ethan your kidney, but you gave me something equally precious. You gave me purpose beyond profit, meaning beyond success. You taught me to be a father, and now you're teaching me to be a husband. I promise to spend the rest of my life earning the gift of your love. Maria was crying by the time he finished. She wiped her eyes and began her own vows. William, when I took the job at your house, I thought I was just finding employment. I didn't know I was finding family. I didn't know that a lonely boy would capture my heart so completely that I'd give him my kidney without hesitation. I didn't know his father would transform from a workaholic stranger into the man I love. You've given me so much, security, yes, but more importantly, belonging. A place where I matter not because of what I do but because of who I am. You've honored my sacrifice not by treating it as debt but by opening your heart and your life. You've become my home, William. You and Ethan. And I promise to love you both, to support you, to challenge you when you need it, and to stand by you always. There wasn't a dry eye in the garden. When the officiant pronounced them married, William kissed Maria as Ethan cheered, hands waving in the visual applause of the deaf community, which the hearing guests quickly mimicked. The celebration that followed was joyful and loud, music playing for the hearing guests while deaf guests enjoyed the visual spectacle of lights and dancing. The highlight of the reception was Ethan's speech. He stood at the microphone with an interpreter beside him, signing while the interpreter voiced. I want to tell you all a story, Ethan began. When I was dying, I was alone in that hospital room thinking about all the things I'd never get to do. I'd never graduate high school. Never go to college. Never fall in love. Never have a family of my own. I was 12 and running out of time. He paused, composing himself. Maria came into my room, not as a housekeeper, just as a person who cared. She held my hand. She signed to me that she loved me and would do anything to help. I didn't know she meant literally anything. When the doctors said I needed a kidney, Maria didn't hesitate. She offered hers. The odds of her being a match were impossible. But she was. And she saved my life. Ethan turned to look at Maria, who was crying. But she didn't just save my life medically. She saved my life in every way. She taught me that being deaf wasn't a limitation but just a different way of experiencing the world. She connected me to deaf culture and community. She convinced my dad to let me go to Anderson Academy, where I finally found friends and belonging. She loved me not despite my deafness but including it. She saw all of me and said, "This is good. This is whole. This is enough." Now Ethan turned to William. "Dad, you and Maria saved each other too. She taught you how to be present, how to prioritize what matters. And you gave her a family, security, and love. You're both better together than you were apart. That's what family is, people who make each other better, who show up for each other, who sacrifice for each other." He raised his glass. "I used to think family was just the people you were born to. Now I know family is the people who choose you and who you choose back. Maria chose me. Dad chose both of us. And I choose you both, every single day. To my parents, thank you for showing me what love looks like. Congratulations." The guests erupted in applause, both audible and visual. Maria rushed over to hug Ethan, followed by William. They stood there, the three of them, holding each other as cameras flashed and guests cheered. Later that night, after most guests had left and Ethan had gone to bed exhausted but happy, William and Maria stood on the balcony looking at the stars. "We did it," Maria said. "We're actually married." "We're actually a family," William corrected. "The adoption papers for you to be Ethan's legal mother are ready. We'll file them next week." Maria leaned her head on his shoulder. "Sometimes I can't believe this is my life. 3 years ago, I was just a housekeeper. Now I'm married to a billionaire and I'm a mother to the most amazing boy." "You were never just anything," William said. "You were always extraordinary. We just had to be smart enough to recognize it." They stood in comfortable silence for a while, then Maria said, "William, there's something I need to tell you. I was waiting until after the wedding." William tensed slightly worried. "What is it?" "I've been talking to some of my family and some people from Anderson Academy," Maria said, "about starting a program. A support system for deaf children of immigrants, especially those whose parents don't speak English as a first language. So many deaf kids in immigrant families are isolated because their parents can't access resources or don't know about deaf culture and sign language. I want to help them. I want to connect families to the deaf community, provide interpreters, offer education about deaf culture." William was quiet for a moment, then said, "That's brilliant. How much funding do you need?" "William, this isn't about asking you for money." "I know," he interrupted. "But I have resources and you have vision and passion. Let's combine them. We'll create a foundation, the Santos Thornton Foundation for Deaf Education and Family Support. You'll run it. I'll fund it. We'll help families like yours might have been, families who just need connection and support." Maria turned to look at him. "You mean it?" "Completely," William said. "Maria, you've given us so much. Let me help you give back to others. Besides, I think Ethan would love to be involved. It would be good for him to help other deaf kids find their place." Maria kissed him softly. "Have I told you lately that I love you?" "Not in the last hour," William teased. "I was starting to worry." They laughed and held each other, looking out at the city lights below. Somewhere in the house, Ethan was sleeping soundly, healthy and whole, dreaming whatever dreams 13-year-old boys dream. He was loved, he was safe, he belonged. The months that followed the wedding were busy but joyful. Maria threw herself into developing the foundation, working with community organizations and deaf advocacy groups. Ethan helped, serving on the youth advisory board, connecting deaf kids with resources and community. William scaled back his business commitments even further, focusing on family and philanthropy. His board initially resisted, but when the company's employee satisfaction and innovation metrics actually improved with his reduced hours, as he delegated more and empowered his teams, they stopped complaining. The Santos Thornton Foundation launched 6 months after the wedding with a gala fundraiser. The event raised $12 million and connected hundreds of families to resources they'd never known existed. Maria shared her story, of being an immigrant who learned sign language to connect with a deaf child she loved, of the journey from housekeeper to mother to advocate. Every child deserves to be seen, Maria told the assembled donors. Every child deserves to be heard, whether they use their voice, their hands, or any other form of communication. Every family deserves support in loving their children exactly as they are. That's what this foundation is about, building bridges between families and the resources that exist but are often hidden. The Foundation's first major initiative was a program pairing newly diagnosed deaf children with deaf adult mentors and with families who'd successfully raised deaf kids. They provided free sign language classes for entire families, not just parents. They created resource guides in multiple languages. They advocated for better access to early intervention services. And at the center of it all was the story of Ethan and Maria, a boy who lived in silence and a woman who chose to enter that silence with him, who learned his language and taught him that silence wasn't emptiness but simply a different way of being in the world. 1 year after the wedding, the family took a trip to the Philippines to visit Maria's relatives. It was Ethan's first time leaving the country, and he was fascinated by everything: the crowded streets of Manila, the beaches, the food, the warmth of Maria's extended family. They visited the village where Maria had grown up, and she showed Ethan the simple house where she'd been raised with her 5 siblings. "This was my room," she said, pointing to a small space. "I shared it with my 3 sisters." Ethan looked around the modest house, so different from the mansion he'd grown up in, and sighed, "You must have been happy here. Your family is so close." "I was happy," Maria agreed. "I had love even without money. That's what I wanted to give you, not wealth, but love. The wealth just came with it." That night, Maria's mother, Lola Teresa, pulled Maria aside. They spoke in Tagalog, which Ethan couldn't understand, but he watched their faces and could tell it was important. Later, Maria translated for Ethan and William. "My mother said she always knew I would do something important with my life. She just thought it would be in the Philippines. She said she was sad when I left but understood I was looking for my purpose. She said she's grateful my purpose found me, even halfway around the world." "What did you tell her?" William asked. "I told her that sometimes our purpose isn't what we think it will be," Maria said. "I came to America to make money and support my family. I thought that was enough. I didn't know I'd find a different family, a different purpose. I didn't know I'd save a boy's life and in doing so save my own." Ethan hugged Maria tightly. "You saved me in every way a person can be saved," he signed. They spent 2 weeks in the Philippines, and when they returned to the States, Ethan had a new appreciation for his family. He understood now where Maria came from, what she'd sacrificed to come to America, what it meant that she'd given him not just her kidney but her whole heart. At school, Ethan excelled. He was near the top of his class, active in multiple clubs, and well-liked by peers and teachers. His drama teacher, a deaf woman named Ms. Rodriguez, pulled Maria aside at a parent-teacher conference. "Ethan is special," Ms. Rodriguez signed. "Not just intelligent, though he is that. But he has empathy beyond his years. He looks out for younger kids, helps students who struggle, advocates for changes that benefit everyone. He's a natural leader." "He learned from the best," Maria signed back, gesturing to William. "No," Ms. Rodriguez signed. "He learned from you. From watching you sacrifice for him, from seeing you advocate for deaf children through your foundation. You're his model for what leadership looks like." That night, Maria shared what Ms. Rodriguez had said. Ethan blushed at the praise but signed, "I just want to help people the way you helped me. You gave me everything. The least I can do is pay it forward." "You don't owe us anything," William signed. "We're family. That's not transactional." "I know," Ethan signed. "But I want to make a difference. I want my life to matter." "Your life already matters," Maria signed. "You matter because you exist, not because of what you accomplish. But I understand wanting to contribute, to help others. That's a good instinct." As Ethan grew older, 14, then 15, the family settled into comfortable rhythms. William's company continued to thrive under his more balanced leadership. Maria's foundation expanded to serve thousands of families. Ethan thrived at Anderson Academy, growing into a thoughtful, compassionate young man. They had challenges, of course. There were medical follow-ups to ensure the transplanted kidney remained healthy. There were moments when Ethan struggled with feeling different, despite his supportive school environment. There were times when William's work demands conflicted with family time, and Maria had to remind him of his priorities. But through it all, they had each other. They had love that had been tested and proven true. They had commitment that went beyond biology or obligation. On the second anniversary of the wedding, the family gathered in the same garden where William and Maria had married. They'd made it a tradition. Every year on this date, they'd recommit to each other, share what they'd learned, celebrate their journey. This year, Ethan wanted to share something special. He'd been working on it for months with his drama teacher. As William and Maria sat in the garden, Ethan stood before them and began to perform. It was a poem, performed in sign language, a beautiful, flowing expression of gratitude, love, and family. His hands moved gracefully, painting pictures in the air, telling the story of a boy who lived in silence until a woman chose to enter that silence with him. A woman who didn't try to fix him but loved him exactly as he was. A woman who gave him her kidney and, in doing so, gave him everything. The poem ended with Ethan signing, "You taught me that silence isn't emptiness. It's space for love to grow. It's room for connection that doesn't need words. It's peace. You taught me that being deaf isn't being broken. It's being whole in a different way. You taught me that family isn't who you're born to but who chooses you and who you choose back. Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for being my parents." Maria was sobbing. William was crying too, not bothering to hide it. They stood and embraced Ethan, the three of them holding each other as the sun set behind them. "We're the lucky ones," William signed to Ethan. "You think we saved you, but you saved us. You taught me what matters. You gave Maria purpose beyond what she imagined. You made us a family. We're all lucky," Ethan signed back. "We found each other. That's the real miracle." And he was right. The real miracle wasn't Maria being a perfect kidney match, though that was statistically impossible. The real miracle wasn't William transforming from an absent workaholic to a present father, though that was remarkable. The real miracle was love, simple, sacrificial, transformative love that saw past differences and disabilities and class distinctions to recognize common humanity. Maria had walked into the Thornton mansion as a housekeeper. She'd never left. She just transformed into something more. Mother, wife, advocate. But if you'd asked Maria, she would have said she wasn't a hero. She was just a woman who loved a boy. A woman who'd made a choice when faced with that boy's death, to offer whatever she could, to try, to hope. She'd offered her kidney, and it had been enough. But more than that, she'd offered her heart, her time, her presence. She'd offered to learn Ethan's language, to enter his world, to see him as whole rather than broken. That was the gift that saved them all. Not the kidney transplant, as miraculous as that was, but the choice to love without reservation, to sacrifice without expectation of return, to see past surface differences to the person underneath. The billionaire's son had lived in silence. But the maid revealed something that changed everything, not through grand gestures or dramatic proclamations, but through quiet, consistent love. Through showing up day after day. Through learning his language, both literally and figuratively. Through seeing him, really seeing him, and declaring that what she saw was good. In the end, that's what we all need. Not to be fixed or changed or made normal. But to be seen. To be loved. To be told that we're enough exactly as we are. Ethan had lived in silence. But he'd never been alone in that silence. Not once Maria entered his world. And in entering his world, she'd transformed it, and her own, completely. 3 years after that first day when Maria signed, "Good morning," to a lonely boy, the Thornton family was whole. Not despite Ethan's deafness, but inclusive of it. Not because Maria had fixed anything, but because she'd loved everything. Not because William had finally gotten his son right, but because he'd finally learned that his son had been right all along. They were a family. Imperfect, unusual, born of circumstance and choice rather than biology. But a family nonetheless. And that was everything. As night fell on their anniversary celebration, the three of them sat in the garden together, watching fireflies dance in the darkness. Ethan couldn't hear the crickets chirping or the wind rustling through the trees. But he could feel the warmth of Maria on one side and William on the other. He could see the love on their faces. He could experience the peace of belonging. And really, that was all the sound anyone ever needed.